All right. Hi, everybody. This is A7X Fan Ben here with God Mason, and this is Pirate CSG Podcast, episode number 9, I believe. And today we're going to be doing the Pirates of the Revolution set review. So this was the third set of the sets that came out. It's one of the most famous sets. A lot of people think it's their favorite. It's oftentimes quoted as like the best set for Pirates, pretty much. There was really good gameplay quality. And so we're going to go through all the pieces like we did in the first two set reviews, and but we're going to start with our thoughts on the set. So I'll let God Mason start that off.
I think it's very much a mixed bag. I mean, you've got stuff like Banshee's Cry, and then you've got stuff like Tiger. I think it's a little bit funny that we remember it so well because in many respects it is kind of average, but I know I like this set quite a lot because it came out in, I want to say early 05, right?
Yeah.
So that would have overlapped with when I was learning about the Revolutionary War in elementary school.
Yep.
And I ended up getting so into the whole American history thing that I actually went as John Paul Jones for Halloween in 5th grade.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I remember being a pirate in like I think it was 4th grade for me.
Yeah, we both had our stages dressing up in costumes for Halloween.
Yeah. For me, this set is pretty awesome. It's always been one of my favorites. My fandom of it has actually gone a little bit lower over time, just because I've really realized how amazing Crimson Coast and South China Seas are. I think those don't get quite enough credit for how amazingly balanced they are and just how classic they are in general. Revolution has a few problems with that we'll get to with events, and some of the name crew are kind of underwhelming. And there was also, like you mentioned, a bit of disparity between the best pieces and the worst ones. There was
possibly the biggest gap of any set, maybe.
Yeah, there was a pretty big disparity in terms of how powerful some of the game pieces were, but we're going to get into that. So without further ado, we're just going to go through the two spreadsheets. We have both versions, the regular and the unlimited version up. So we're mostly going to use the unlimited because it has a few extra ships at the end from the special edition boxes. But we're going to start with the Slay and Captain Whitebeard, actually, because they're at the top of the spreadsheet at miniature trading, or at the top of the set, how it's laid out. So yeah, like with the Crimson Coast review, we're just going to go through the pieces and not say all the stats because it would take a lot longer. So
except for when I stall because I haven't figured out my thoughts on a piece.
Yeah, that's fine. And so yeah, if you want to get miniature trading up, that might help unless you know all the pieces pretty well. So we're going to start with Captain Whitebeard and the Slay. I actually don't really have comments on these. I don't own these ones, and I'm not as big on them as some people are. But it was kind of cool as a theme.
I actually do have a sort of back in the day story about this.
Nice.
Way back in, I want to say it was 2005. WizKids did a sort of online raffle for a bunch of packs of this, and I put my name in because of course I did. Yeah. And I recall very eagerly opening up the page that showed all the people who'd won. And not only was I very disappointed not to find my name, I was a bit frustrated by the fact that I saw several instances of the same person's name. Why would you do this? Why would you put your name in hundreds of times and deny a 10-year-old the chance to have, the Santa Claus ship?
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
I might have still believed in Santa Claus at that time. That was mean of people.
Yeah.
But fortunately, they made many more than they just gave away there, and I eventually got one on eBay. Nice. I don't actually think I've assembled it yet.
Oh, cool. Huh.
But I might do that around the holidays.
Yeah.
I like to imagine maybe playing a game with multiple people trying to take down Whitebeard, but...
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. 3-on-1 or something.
Because the combo is so absurdly powerful that really people don't ever mention it. I mean, it's more powerful than any Banshee's Cry or Lord Micron ever was, but because it's sort of obviously meant to be that way, I think nobody's ever acknowledged it.
Yeah, people don't really talk about it that much for gameplay because it's not really, you don't really use it in a game because it's just too good. So
I've thought about is it feasible to include Captain Whitebeard in a normal fleet, with the keyword of crew of any nationality, but I might be pushing it.
Yeah, probably. The ability
Yeah.
is so like silly. It doesn't even make sense.
I
It's
should
kind of like a part.
probably see if I can get my play group together in December sometime, just
Yeah.
so we can use that
Yep.
and see if people are actually willing to do the shouting of ho ho ho.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah, it sounds like a party game ability in a way, like the
Yeah,
card you would draw or something like that.
yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the normal set
Yeah.
pieces.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, I'll start off. The Black Swan, first ship in the set. This one I like quite a lot. It's kind of underwhelming, a lot of the base stats, but I like the ability. It's pretty good. The patterns don't really need it, but it's a pretty solid ship. It has good speed for a 5-master, and I really love the way the ship looks. It's one of the coolest looking ships in the game, and that's a theme throughout Revolution, actually. There's a lot of really classic looking ships, especially among the pirates, at least in my opinion. So yeah,
Yeah,
I like the ship quite a lot.
yeah, it's got a relatively large amount of detail
Hmm.
for early set art because a lot of them were pretty simplistic, but it's a very handsome ship.
Yeah.
If you know where I'm coming from when I say this, could we use Black Swan as the bar by which we can measure all other 5-masted ships?
Yeah, it seems pretty much like that way. Yeah.
Because, it's got a pretty standard ability, and it's basically average or slightly above in every other respect. It's got usable point cost, good cargo space, okay move, armament that's really just acceptable due to how big it is,
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
So I guess if we want to judge any 5-masted ships in the future, we can probably use this as kind of the bar.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So moving on, let's talk about Neptune's Horde here. It's a fast, well, I guess reasonably well armed with all 3S guns, 4-masted schooner, and 4-masted schooners were a new ship type for this set.
Mm-hmm.
Neptune's Horde is, it is actually a pretty solid treasure runner, if kind of expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It does have a very good move, an excellent cargo space, and an ability that does befit its role.
Yeah.
Although because it's on the expensive side, I'm not sure I'd see myself using this all that much.
Yeah, I think it's a really good ship. It's one of my favorite pirate treasure runners for the most part. I don't use it a ton anymore, probably because it's seems kind of overused. This was actually kind of a famous ship as part of the old Norvegia setup with a bunch of like cheese stuff. Um, so you would put like Don Pedro Gilbert on here and crew like that, and like a helmsman, and like an oarsman explorer, and then it was like one of those fleets where you would sack a crew, go out to an island, and then you'd get a gold back really fast with like sack actions, and then you'd build forts on the islands. So, and then that became like illegal when they changed some of the fort rules around, which was good, but it's definitely one of the better pirate treasure runners, and also one of the better 4-masters in the game overall. Pretty much very good in every way. The armament's the only thing that's not like stand out as really good, but it's certainly fine, and it makes the ship a pretty good candidate to be a hybrid too.
Mm-hmm. Could you almost say it was like a proto Haipeng? Not speed wise, but strategy wise.
Yeah, definitely strategy wise, I could see that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
And because it has excusable armament, I think it's very much a ship that is still viable.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
It's aged pretty well.
Yeah. The next one, the Golden Medusa. This is another 4-masted schooner. This one's more of a fighting role, has the same speed, but much better cannons overall, a little bit less cargo, and has a really nice ability. The crew can't balloon and the ship sinks, which is nice. This is a really good, kind of like the opposite of Neptune's Horde. This is one of the best pirate 4-masted gunships, actually. It has really good cargo space and point cap space to put a lot of good crew aboard, including some good named crew. So this one's just a really fantastic option as a gunship.
Mm-hmm. As good as it is, there are other ships at this price point that have significantly better armament. It's probably not quite fair to compare it to HMS Gallows, but you kind of have to.
Yeah.
The Golden Medusa it's not a ship I can see myself using, but I'm sure that if I were to go up against it, I would go, wow, that's a lot better than I expected.
Yeah, it's quite good. It's a really good gunship overall.
Mm-hmm. Especially it's definitely not bad.
Yeah, the ability to not have crew eliminated is pretty awesome too. So
Yeah, that's probably a lot more useful than I'm giving it credit for.
yeah, it can be sometimes.
I'll hop on next to Pride, which is a ship I always kind of wanted to like more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit expensive and not quite well armed enough for its point cost, and it's just kind of got average hold space. It's not a bad ability, but again, broadside's attack is best used on ships with S-range guns and more accurate than 3.
Yep.
So it's just not quite there.
Yeah.
I would like to use it at some point, though.
Yeah, I like this ship quite a bunch. I like SL speed a lot, and then all the cannons are long range, which I really like quite a lot too. It is wasting points on broadside's attack, like some of the other ships we've looked at in the other sets. But overall, still a fast and good pirate gunship. The Golden Medusa has it beat on ability and firepower for the point cost, but the Pride is still a pretty good option, pretty much at any point level. The next one I'll do is Cursed Blade. This is actually one of my favorite ships. I wrote a review on it a while back. It's one of my original 49 ships from my original collection. It has a really nice combination of stats and the ability. It's kind of like a perfect hybrid. It has solid speed, very good cargo for a 3-master with 5, and then it can randomly take a treasure from any ship she touches. So then if you win a boarding party, you could take 2 treasures on 1 turn. So I would usually outfit it with all sorts of different crew, like Captain and Helmsman, or maybe Hammersmith, or maybe even Hammersmith and Coconut with Explorer and Reroll. You could even get like an extra action crew aboard. So there's just a lot of options, and it's just a classic ship and one of my favorites. So it's sentimental for me for a lot of reasons, but I do think it is still a pretty good ship even in today's game.
I have to agree with you, and it's not out yet, but you know how I've been doing those ship ranking threads?
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm itching to post the next iteration of, but I'm trying to keep it to 1 a week. So I've got to delay that till tomorrow or Thursday. We're recording this on a Tuesday. This made, I think, the top 10 for schooners released because, it's below average cost for a 3-masted multi-purpose ship, which is usually about 12. Its armament is okay. Great cargo space, useful ability. It's probably one of the most underrated ships ever released.
Yeah, I would say so too, and I think I talked about that in my review. And then one little thing, I like with the schooner keyword, you could rotate on the stern and then hit another ship without ramming, and then randomly take a treasure with the second ability, and then you wouldn't be pinned for the next turn. That's a cool little combo you could use to combine both abilities in one, action or whatever.
So does that mean that you could basically ram but not be pinned, or am I getting...
I'm basically saying if you didn't touch the bow of the Cursed Blade to the enemy ship, you wouldn't ram in the first place. Like, you can get away with touching without ramming. Usually it's pretty tricky. You kind of have to have a ship with, sides that are bowed out a bit, and then if you go on a straight line, you can, hit the other ship with the side of your ship rather than the bow. I learned this from Wolf, actually, because I didn't know it was possible until however many years ago. But yeah, and then with the schooner keyword, you could do a similar thing where you could turn, and then you could be broadside to the other ship, or if you didn't want to do that, you could touch the side of the Cursed Blade to the stern of the enemy ship, and then use that second ability to steal a treasure without having to get pinned.
That's very interesting, and I kind of wonder if that can stack with similar but not identical abilities.
Yeah, it might be able to. Yeah, because I think you could still board, I'm pretty sure, too. Yeah.
I'll hop onto Hades Flame next.
Yep.
At 13 points, it is really pretty expensive for a 2-masted ship, but it does have awesome move, solid cargo space, and actually kind of a pertinent ability.
Yep.
I think this is probably in the neighborhood of absurdly expensive but still kind of effective treasure runners.
Yep.
I'm not sure I could see myself using this over, of course, Banshee's Cry, but this will probably be forgotten as one of the better empty treasure runners. Or you could throw on Gentleman Jocard and a Helmsman and make it stupid fast.
Yep. Yeah, I like this ship a lot. It's really, for me, it's one of the coolest ships. It has a white hull and then red sails. Then it has Ghost Ship keyword, which, it came out in Crimson Coast, that keyword, but it's still one of the first ghost ships overall in the game. And yeah, it's a perfect ghost ship with that big base move and good cargo and stuff. So yeah, it is quite a good gold runner. It is expensive for what you get. It's pretty fragile, but still a pretty solid option for the pirates. The next Executioner, I know you like this one a bunch.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah,
One of my favorite two-masted ships.
Yeah,
you start.
You do it. No, you do it. That's fine.
Okay, Executioner is everything that a two-masted ship should be, because it's 8 points, so it's cheap. It's got 4 cargo space, so it can be a gold run. It's got SS move. It's not especially good. It's like, it's an average speed overall. But it has a pair of 2L guns and an awesome ability, eliminating 1 crew when you hit. It is literally good at every role you can put it in.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I love the combination of the guns, pretty much everything, and like the guns, the speed, the cargo, and the ability are all just really nice. Basically, I think it kind of sums up Revolution, because it's like the ship has good stats in like every category. Like there's not a lot to complain about, like a lot of other ships in this set. It's just really cool, nice. So
the SS move is average, but I mean,
but it's still pretty solid overall, especially with the later sets. So.
Yeah, Hammersmith and Gentleman Joe Card, put them on this, and you've instantly got yourself a fast treasure runner that'll do a nasty job of defending itself.
Yep, yeah, that's a good combo. Okay, so the next one, the Bloody Jewel. This one is one of the best pirate gold runners in the entire game. The negative ability brings it down at least a point or two. I always compare this one to the Bonnie Liz from Crimson Coast, which is basically the same ship, but with 2 points more for almost like an opposite ability. But basically, this is one of the better gold runners in the game, not just pirate too, just overall. It's one of the best. Has a nice red look, red sails, red hull, fits with the name, and it actually has the guns to be a hybrid if you wanted to put a captain on it, as well as like a helmsman or maybe an explorer. But I usually just run it with a helmsman, and it's really fantastic. So you'd have 4 cargo spaces open at SLS move with 8 points, which is really just an amazing deal.
I would compare it more to L'Intrépide from Crimson Coast, because they've got the same move, but this one is 1 point more, and you get more cargo. And it's got the same negative ability.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So yeah, it's very much comparable. You could just throw a helmsman aboard it and use it as a very fast treasure runner, or you could, as you said, go the multi-purpose route, and I'd use something like Hammersmith for that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, and after Bloody Jewel comes Tiger, which I think I mentioned earlier is the worst ship in the set, I think.
Yeah.
I cannot figure out any possible use for this ship. It's another case of WizKids making a ship really expensive, even though it's terrible, just because it has an expensive ability.
Yeah, there's not... I know, I think Lord Stu did a review, which is kind of eye-opening to how the ship could be used. I mean, it's never going to be a good ship, definitely. But the ability is really unnecessary, and it's best on like 4 masts and up, 4 and 5 masters. The only thing I can think of is maybe like Captain Helmsman, Musketeer, Oarsman, because then you could have 3 cannons shooting on a 2-master, even when derelict, because the Oarsman ability. But I mean, it's definitely not worth the points. It's just kind of like could I use this ship in a game and win somehow, more than actually something that's actually useful.
Yeah, it's a ship that we're desperate to find a use for, because it does have a powerful ability, but everything else about it is average or bad.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now we get into a couple ships I really like a lot. The Cutlass. 2-masted schooner. This one has really nice support gunship, great speed, SL, solid cargo, good cannons, 8 points. The ability, +1 to cannon rolls against forts with an S, not a great ability, pretty situational. But it's still, even without that ability coming into play, it's still quite a good support gunship, especially the speed and the cannons are they don't really leave anything to be desired for the most part. So,
yeah, this is the kind of ship that I think I'd see myself using if I knew an opponent was going to use a fort. Aside from that, I think I'd rather use Executioner, but Cutlass definitely deserves an honorable mention as a really solid 2-masted gunship.
Yep.
Panda is next. This is a 2-masted schooner with a pair of 2L guns. You know what this really is? This is Executioner with a schooner keyword for 3 more points.
Yeah, pretty much.
It
and a better
literally
ability,
is.
Too. Yeah.
It's,
The ability is mostly the point cost difference, I think.
Yeah. I'm not sure Schooner's worth 3 points.
Yeah, I think just 1 here, or maybe 2.
Yeah, I think if this were a 9-point ship, it would be pretty tempting, but at its published point cost, it kind of has to play second fiddle.
Yeah, it's quite good. Not quite as good as Executioner because of the points, but I like that you eliminate a cargo with every hit instead of just crew.
Oh wait, yeah, was it cargo?
Yeah, so it can take out coins. Yeah, it can take out coins too and equipment. So.
Oh yes, yeah. Okay, once per. Wait, it's not a once per turn either. This has the Assassino della Nave keyword.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, every hit. So like I'd say
I'm wrong then. Ignore me.
I think the Executioner is still better. It's just it's actually pretty close. Like Panda's ability is basically 4 points, and then Executioner's ability is 2. So that explains 2 of the point difference, and then Schooner is 1, so that's the 3-point differential. So it just depends on like what points you have available. Which in most games people play, they won't even have those 3 points. They'd much rather just get the captain on Executioner, for example. But if you have the points, Panda is a little bit more powerful. In terms of the abilities, though, Panda could only eliminate 2 cargo in 1 turn unless you get like a musketeer or something on there, versus the Executioner does 1 crew. So but
eliminating 2 cargo is quite a lot. I mean, you'd never want to be missing 2 crew or 2 gold all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm just saying it's not the 1 versus 2 isn't always going to be a huge difference versus like if you get that eliminating cargo ability on like a 3 or 5 master, then it's going to be a lot more devastating.
Yeah. So. Yeah, although I'm not sure that ability ever came on any ship larger than Assassino, save for, Qianting that you can drop on some bigger ships, but we'll get to that later.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, Cheval, there's a pirate crew with it that doesn't get any attention because he's hidden among the Caribbean, like UT crew for twofer cards, so he's not very well known, but there's a
crew for twofer.
Yeah. Well, it's not a crew for twofer, it's like a crew in UT. Crew for twofer is like the Spanish Main and like Ocean's Edge type stuff, but anyway. And then the next one, Coral. This one's good. This is another ship I had back in the day. It's a pretty good gold runner. It's pretty fragile. It can't be shot at while docked, which is nice at Wild Islands, but the problem is you're just going to get rammed anyway, probably. The nice thing is that, like a lot of other ships we'll talk about, the stats are just great. Solid cargo for 1 master, great speed. The gun is good, which doesn't matter that much, but it's still nice to have. So it's pretty good defensive gold runner for the pirates. But when you compare it to the other options in this set, especially, it doesn't really look quite as enticing.
Yeah, I feel like it was made. It was one of those ships where while they were drawing it up, they're like, yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. But then they forgot about the major weakness of 1-masted ships, which is basically if you ram it, it's gone.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. It would have been good if it were, if it were a turtle ship and you played with the house rule that turtle ships don't take instant mast damage from ramming, which I do.
Yeah, I like that.
Then, it would be a really solid ship.
Yeah.
But as is,
Yep.
All right, Banshee's Cry.
Yeah.
Do we have anything to say?
Not really. Best ship in the
game.
Why,
WizKids?
Yeah.
Why? So what do you think of Lightning, then?
Lightning I like quite a lot. Yeah, Banshee's Cry, best ship in the game. There's not a lot of competition, really. Darkhawk, maybe. There's not much else competition, to be honest. A little bit. Lightning, this is another one. Oh, this is actually a little bit funny.
1-masted schooner.
Yeah, I like this ship. I think it's kind of underrated. Again, just like Coral, Lightning and Coral would be great if the Banshee's Cry didn't exist. So they'd get overlooked as a result. But that's kind of gets to my point, though. Back when I first started, in my Revolution packs, I got Coral and Lightning, but not Banshee's Cry. So I had the other two. So I didn't have the OP one, which is probably good. But yeah, Lightning is pretty good. It's super cheap, dirt cheap. You can add it with 0 LR, limit ransom plus 5 crew, because it's only 5 points. Good cargo and speed. I would usually just run it empty as an extra gold runner, tossed in at the end of your fleet, or maybe with a helmsman, but you don't really need it. Just a nice cheap ship.
Yeah, this is honestly a ship I don't really see myself using because it's pretty average or slightly below in every way to me. I can think of, not by name, but I can think of multiple ships, two-masted ships from Spanish Main at this point cost I'd rather use.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I just like the three cargo for 5 points is a deal I like, and it's this one kind of like Chris Blade. It's another more of a sentimental favorite for me. So it's pretty it's useful, but not always the best. So.
Yeah, that's still a fair appraisal, and I may be underrating it. It's also one of maybe just a couple one-masted ships that have the schooner keyword in the game. It might be the only one, but don't quote me.
Yeah, it might be. I think they all should, but oh well.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Just retroactively give them all the schooner keyword. Probably, except for Banshee's Cry.
Yeah.
Next is Jean Lafitte, I think. Is it Jean? I'm going to say Jean Lafitte because it's a French name.
Yeah.
This is a Fleet Admiral crew at 5 points when I think they normally cost 6.
Yep, exactly.
And it's got a link to the almost good Pride that we mentioned above.
Yeah, he's great. Should be 6, really. It's just kind of the Pirates being unfair as usual. So,
yeah.
Oh well. The next guy, Don Pedro Gilbert. I mentioned this guy with the Neptune's Horde, one of the better pirate named crew in the game. I don't think he gets used a ton anymore. He was big back when the first 3 to 5 sets were the only sets out. Basically sack and then also trading treasure. So it's the perfect crew for a multi-purpose or a larger gold runner that can afford to have a bunch of oarsmen and maybe one explorer aboard to sacrifice. Not a great crew for newbies. It can get a little bit complex, at least compared to other things. I mean, it's not super complicated, but yeah, being able to trade away that treasure is really nice to have on that gold runner too. So definitely a staple of a lot of competitive early fleets, but not quite as popular anymore, I would say, but still very good.
Yeah, he's definitely got his niche, but with the options that came out later, I think he's kind of been made obsolete.
He's not obsolete at all. I mean, he did great. Yeah, we had him. He's in a few fleets in I think it was tournament number 2. I don't know if he was in T1, but yeah, Zarek and I did the old Norvegia fleet, and I got beat by one of the UPS fleets with a high peng, but he's still a really good crew, and outside of super competitive play, he's going to be one of the better named crew options for the most part, as long as you use him right. Like I said, Neptune's Horde is pretty much perfect for him, but other pirate gold runners with decent cargo could use him too. So
yeah, that makes sense. I'll hop on next to Devereaux. This is a very interesting crew because it's very much geared toward a gold runner and a home island raider. I think this is one of the ideal pairings with Raven's Neck from Spanish Main. Because it just augments both of that ship's strengths, which are its ability and its huge hold space.
Yeah, it's a pretty good crew. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. I pretty much agree. I tried to use him in a fleet one time. It's kind of difficult with 7 points. It's a lot for a named crew, but pretty solid overall. Especially
for one that doesn't provide any extra actions.
Yeah. And then the next one, Lady Baptiste. This one is just a basic reroll crew for 3 points. Not much else to say.
I see on here, isn't this supposed to have a link to Gold Medusa?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't think the database is updated with all the links for the unlimited version. So. Yeah, we could look at both for those, and then just get to the last 4 ships at the end for the UL.
Yeah. The patch I'll hit next. This ship ignores terrain. At 3 points, I never found this the most useful ability. I don't ever see myself using it.
Yeah, I never seek it out at all. If a ship has it built in, like the Argo or the Hanuwiki, decent gold runners with it built in, but I would never use a crew on a gold runner to take up a space. No real point. So.
Yep.
The next one, Amos. This is a 2-point reducer. or no, it's not. Sorry about that. It's a 3-point recruiter, so you can bring in a crew with a point cost 2 or less from outside the game. This one, another one, I don't really seek it out.
Isn't it like some super niche use or something?
Yeah, exactly. The best thing I can think about is like a 100 or 200 point game where you bring it in to a gunship, and then depending on the situation, you could get like a shipwright or a chain shot specialist or like a stink pot specialist to use against like a 10 master. I don't know, but other than that,
it's such a niche use that I think I'm never going to use him.
Yeah, I know. I've tried. I've almost like tried to come up with combos, but it just doesn't. It's just kind of tough. You're just wasting the point, basically. So.
Yeah. Next is Divers, one of the events, and while I haven't used it, reading it kind of convinces me that it's a bit unfair.
Yeah, I don't really play with events anymore outside of finishing up the Vassal tournaments. I don't really think they should have existed, which I've already talked about. But yeah, it's not nearly as bad as the other events, but it should still be more expensive. Basically, all of them should have been more. So, oh well. The next one, Philippe Lafitte. Yep. Sorry. This guy is linked to the Pride as well. When it hits another ship, you choose which mass is eliminated. This one, again, it's not an ability I seek out. Yeah, it's decent, but I don't really seek the ability out. It's better if the ship already has it built in and you just kind of get it as a bonus. But the 2 points are almost always better spent on a fire pot specialist, for example. So.
And it doesn't pair amazingly with its linked ship Pride.
Yeah, broadsides.
His brother, and in that ship, it's expensive and not an amazing set of links, but I don't know, maybe somebody can find a good use for it.
Yeah.
But after Philippe Lafitte, no, we already talked about Divers, so I'm going to jump onto the... Yep, I'm going to jump onto the Devil's Maw.
Yep.
Pretty interesting for it, as far as things go. I don't think that the ghost ship keyword is as useful as WizKids thought it would be. But other things considered, it is pretty well armed, although kind of expensive.
Yeah, I pretty much love like almost all the forts, so I'll never have anything bad to say. It is really cool. Has a super unique ability. The only one like that, of course. It's like kind of like the other forts for the most part, but yeah, I like it a lot. I like the guns are nice and diverse too, mix of the SNL and different ranks, so pretty cool. It is expensive, tied with the most expensive fort. So,
which I think we'll get to. Is that later in this set?
Yeah, I can't remember. I always forget the Spanish. Oh yeah, Fortaleza Dorada. So I think it should be.
Wait, I thought that there was a French one that I can remember by name, but I thought it was in this set.
Yeah, Paradise is 4. It should have been like 8. It should have been 8 or 10, but
that's
pretty much. Yeah, I actually made that mistake. I thought it was 5. Like I was on Vassal maybe or something, and I looked it up. It was like 4. It's like, come on, at least it should be the most expensive. Anyway, do you want to talk about Firepot Specialists or no?
Oh, were they introduced in this set?
Yeah.
Were they? Okay.
I guess so.
Yeah. I haven't used them probably nearly as much as you do.
Yeah.
And I say that because I think I actually haven't used them. But as far as something that can do crazy amounts of damage with a single hit, they're just about unparalleled. Arguably, this is a more useful ability than Broadside's attack, and it comes in at a far lesser cost.
Yeah, it's really good. They actually had to change it because it was too good. They changed it so it's 1 to 2 the fire spreads, and then 5 or 6 it goes out. But yeah, it's a great one. I've used it a bunch in my campaign game, Command the Oceans. It's actually become not really overpowered in that, but it kind of gets past some of the house rules I made for that game. But it's quite impressive. And also, one thing I posted about in the forum like within the past month is how with Fire Shot, I always seem to roll a 1 to make it backfire. So even though you can use the equipment with like L-range guns and it's a point less, I'm finding that equipment is oftentimes not worth it because whenever I roll cannons, the first 4 are, they roll fine and I hit, and then it comes time to use the equipment, and that one has to be a 1 like every time, so it always backfires. So I found that fire pot specialists are actually a lot more reliable because of that. So yeah, I've used them to very good success, especially lately. So English.
HMS Swallow?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on HMS Swallow?
I like it a lot. It's quite a good ship. It's tied with the fastest base move on a 5-master. Has solid cannons. I like using it as like a super fast like attack ship, but it can also be a hybrid though. Actually, especially with like Thomas Gunner from Mighty Gold from Rise of the Fiends on there, saving cargo space. If you really wanted to go crazy, you could add Ismail from Fairway Coast to get that extra cargo space back. But yeah,
for either an Explorer or a SAT.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's definitely a great ship. It does waste points on broadside attack, but I think you can kind of overlook that based on the cargo and move and how good it is as a multi-purpose ship. It's a really unique 5-master.
Yeah, I mean, it's a British 5-master is 17 points, and that makes me think HMS Titan, which I think I'd rather use, but the extra speed that this ship has can't really be ignored.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
The ability does not pair well with the armament that it has. We'll get to its linked crew later.
Yep.
But as a 5-master, I don't see myself using it that much. But I'm sure that it's better than I would ever give it credit for. HMS Dreadnought is next. I actually assembled this ship just this morning.
Oh, nice.
I have a morning ritual where, like, ships that I'm going to add to my play collection, I will assemble one each morning first thing, nice. Just kind of wake my head up. That was this ship cool. This morning. Nice. But this is, correct me if I'm wrong, the most expensive non-10-masted ship in the game.
Yep. Yeah, as far as I remember, it definitely is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does have good armament, and good cargo space and a powerful fitting ability, but it's so expensive and slow.
Yeah, that speed is really, if it was like S plus S maybe, but
or even just L.
Yeah, I think like 20, 21, 22 points would have been better. It's definitely overpriced. I think they kind of made it that way on purpose. I'm just like kind of hypothesizing, but I think they wanted to make some kind of crazy ship like this, just to be able to put a ton of named crew on it, but then it's still like slow. One thing I like about it, how it's more like historical, because the guns don't get eliminated with the masts, and then the speed is slow, which makes sense too. So it's kind of, since I like the historical stuff, and of course the ship's name is legendary for centuries now. So it's one I'll always like, but it's definitely not one I will always enjoy using. My best memories with it have come in campaign games where the point cost is much less of an issue, almost like irrelevant in a way, when you have like thousands of points. Like CG1, Vassal Campaign Game 1, I was able to use Carbon Charlie to make like 10 extra cannons.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this.
Yeah, I think I already talked about it, but I had like 15 cannons. And then just to go overboard, I put like a Marine on there. So I had 16, and then I also had like a World Hater crew. So I had like 16 cannons firing at rank 2. So basically anything that it attacked would get sunk that turn. Like I almost didn't have to roll. I just made the rolls like super quick and just made sure there was at least like 6 hits or whatever. So
just dropped a handful of dice.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, it's a cool ship. It's kind of like a novelty, kind of a weird one.
Not really viable in a 40-point game, but once you go bigger than that...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with a World Hater plus, I want to say it's Sir Rupert Hargreaves.
Yeah, it'd be good too.
Yeah. Let's see.
I like how the point space gives you a ton of options for a named crew, which is fun, because the English have a lot of good named crews. So, yeah, HMS Oxford is next. Schooner. This one is one of their best gunships pretty much in the game. Great speed and amazing cannons. The ability for situational, not really. You can pretty much ignore it, because even without that ability, it would still be one of the best 4-masted English gunships. So, really great one. The speed and the guns are the best assets here.
I think this is also one that made one of the top schooners list, but I'll post that later. I think you could almost consider this a schooner analog to HMS London.
Yeah.
Because it's 1 point more expensive to account for the schooner keyword, and it also has a super niche ability. But aside from that, it's got a good move, good cargo, and great armament. So yeah, that's easily one of the best four-masted British ships out there.
Yep, definitely.
HMS Serapis, which I'll take next, is it's almost good.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, I mean, in theory, you could stack it with like the promo version of Griffin from Rise of the Fiends.
Yeah,
but it's getting extreme because that crew's so rare that I'm just being silly.
Yeah. Then you don't have point space for a helmsman too. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so it's solid, but very underwhelming compared to other English gunships in general. And even the two ships surrounding it in the set, the Oxford and the Nautilus, those are both considerably better. So, yeah, not a great one.
Speaking of the Nautilus.
Yeah, HMS Nautilus is the next one. Great ship. Same speed as the Oxford SL. Similar cannons. They're all ranked 2. Other than that, pretty average actually. Other than that, but the speed and the cannons are what you need to have a very good gunship, and this one is.
And it does undercut all the three-masted multi-purpose ships with rank 2 guns, because I think this is the cheapest among the three-masted ships that have good speed and guns this good.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Yep.
There's a reason why it was basically featured on the front page for, I want to say, 2 years.
Yeah, something like that.
HMS Algiers is... I look at this and I do struggle to find a purpose for it. It's kind of classic British, good but overpriced.
Yeah.
With small mass ships, because I mean that's a good ability and that's good armament, but it's basically like 2/5 of HMS Titan, but at 2/3 the price.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. Yeah, I wish the cargo was more. Like, if the cargo was 4 or the speed was SL, I think it would be more viable. As is, you don't really have a lot of cargo to put great named crew for the most part. I mean, Captain Helmsman, maybe like...
or Thomas Gun reroller.
Yeah, exactly. Like a limit reroller, maybe. Get like 6S speed with 4 2L shots, but then you're costing at least 17 points, which you could get, the Titan for that without crew. So it's solid, but it's fragile for how good it is as a gunship. So the next one, HMS Lord Caldwell. This one's okay. I had like 5 or 6 duplicates of this like a couple years ago. I kind of like give them away. But it's solid. It's just kind of underwhelming, and WizKids kind of made it obsolete because the next set in Barbary Coast they have the Lord Kenyon, which is literally the exact same ship in every way, but it has 4 cargo instead of 2. So it made this one obsolete. So it's just kind of underwhelming.
One Lord better than the other.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I look at this and I think it's probably costed about right-ish considering the ability. Maybe it should be a little bit cheaper, but yeah, the ability is not amazing on a ship of this size. So it ends up just being kind of something you'll pass on.
Yeah.
HMS Apollo, meh. There are so much better options for 2-masted ships in this set. We already talked about both Panda and Executioner.
Yeah. It's the speed is the only thing that makes it stand out. Everything else is quite boring. She's been a kind of a fun ship in Command the Ocean. She's gone on some expeditions and going home to repair right now. But anyway, the next one, HMS Frolic. This is one of the ones from my. This is one of the ones from my original collection, and one of my least favorite ships between the flavor text and how the ship just isn't very good at all. It's not one of my favorites for English. It's not English. It feels like a French ship. because it's like runs from combat and it has like like L range cannons cannot hit the ship. Like it seems like it should be French versus the English. Like don't run from battle and they like fight.
Is this a French World War II joke?
Oh no, not at all. I'm just saying that I'm just came up with that on a whim because like I don't know, it just doesn't feel English to me. The biggest problem for me is actually the cargo, because the guns are never going to be good enough to be a gunship. But then if you use it as a gold runner, you'd have to use it empty, which for 12 points for 2 cargo is just a terrible deal. So even with that ability. So.
Yeah, it's like it's got 2 good attributes, but everything else is bad.
Yeah.
And the 2 good attributes don't pair all that well.
Yeah.
Yeah. HMS Greyhound is next. This I can see as a dedicated fort killer in a big game.
Yeah.
But it's pretty vulnerable to be being hunted down by a big fast ship.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I like it. It's kind of like a flavor, like scout ship sort of, with a big base move, LL. You don't really have enough cargo to even do a helmsman, so a captain and just a fort wrecker really, but not very viable for smaller games at all. So now we're getting into English crew. Woodes Rogers, historical crew. This one is actually not good at all. You're basically paying 3 points for +1 to cannon rolls against forts within S of the ship, which is extremely situational and is better just on a ship like the Oxford as a nice little bonus at the end. And then you're paying a couple points for +1 to cannon rolls against the pirates, which is also very situational. I will have to say though, this guy was useful in Vassal Campaign Game 2 because I put him on, I can't remember which one, but I put him on a 10 master. It could have even been a custom or with I don't know what it was, but basically I attacked Zarek through a whirlpool, and spoiler alert, but he had like a devil's maw. So I came at him through the whirlpool with a 10 master with this guy, and Zarek's was the pirates in this game, so I got to use both of his abilities on a 10-masted ship and get the bonuses on a bunch of cannon rolls rather than just like a few if it was a smaller ship. So I was actually stunned to use him, but there is one example of him being useful, like maybe the first ever, but
probably.
Yeah.
I look at it and I go, I'm never going to use this because I just don't play games that are big enough. I haven't gotten bored with 40 points.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Nigel Hardwick, he's on the more expensive side of Marines, and he's got a faction ability. I don't see him as something that I'd use.
Yeah, me either. Just same thing, really. Campaign games. I think I used him against the Americans in Economy Edition. But other than that, I think Marines should have costed 5 points to begin with, and I kind of think the faction bonuses for the Marines should have either been free or like not existent. Like maybe keep them at 5 as a base and then just put it in the flavor text. But yeah, 7 points for a 2S cannon is just ridiculous. So you could get like a ship or sometimes 2 ships for that. So
for 1 point more, you could get yourself Executioner.
Yeah.
You get yourself instead of 1 2S gun, 2 2L guns.
Yeah, we could compare everything to Executioner.
You kind of have to though.
Yeah, for you.
Because Executioner is a common ship too. There's so many made that it's still easy to get.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so the next one, Sir Watkins Defoe. Just like the patch, ignores terrain, wind, given move action for 3 points. Nothing we'd want to use on a crew. Link to Algiers is not really any good. So I guess with him, you could still fit a captain and helmsman aboard with a link, but there's not much reason you'd really want to other than to say you did. So.
Yep. And you can probably skip ahead to Robinson.
Yeah, I could look at Robinson. This one, he's one of those really confusing points where crew where the crew don't cost points, but they always take up a cargo space. Cause a lot of confusion. I already talked about Jonah in the last set review. Best use for him in terms of how common it is generally the Patagonia with Micron. You can get 10 points for a double action anywhere in your fleet whenever you want it, which is great. But other than that,
and if you want, you can throw on Administrator Scott Bradley.
Yeah,
basically
exactly,
take
for the
the
free
whole
5.
setup's cost down to 5.
Yeah, essentially, yep, exactly, because you'll have a captain that helms it somewhere else or whatever. So, other than
And
that, I haven't really used it much,
it's
but
not, in theory, it's not even vulnerable to losing Mr. Bratley there, because it'll never leave your home island, right?
yeah, exactly. We've had a few, Xerix and I have had a few weird situations in the Vassal tournaments where the games are so close and down to the wire that you end up having like a one master ramming the Patagonia to try to get the ransom gold. But in most games that won't happen, so it's more of a like last ditch effort.
Yeah. Raft is up next. Yeah, among events, this looks like one of the least useful ones, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to spend a point on it.
Yeah, it's okay. Kind of just like an insurance option. The other thing is, the crew and gold go to the nearest wild island, and if they sink one of your ships, they could just pick it up right after. So, even if they had cargo, so I don't know, it's all right.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't. It
Yes.
can backfire on you, and it costs you points.
Yeah, exactly. The next one I love, Ramsgate. This is the English fort from Revolution. It's my favorite fort in the game. 4 points. It has 5 3L cannons, but the key is that one of them has LL range. So it has really, it's just a really awesome ability. It's perfect for like the zone control strategy, as like people call it. I made like a zone control fleet. It's not like ridiculously useful. It's more of a coolness factor, and I just love, like, I like flotillas and a lot, and I like the sniping ability, and this one just takes it to an extreme because it's on a fort, so you can have like a wide swath of like zone control, sort of. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you broke rules regarding how close islands are allowed to be to each other.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah. And if you were to go nuts with terrain density, then this would be especially valuable. Doubly so if placed in a really good spot.
Yep.
I haven't used forts much because I'm still kind of gradually getting my play group into the I guess the intricacies of the game.
Yeah.
But this is one I can see myself using.
Yeah. And then I just remembered 2 weird combos with it. Basically, the floating turtles from Savage Shores that can move. So then you can have a cannon that moves a bit with the LL range. And then also, this one's more niche and like it's not that likely to work, but bad maps. Actually, I don't know if that one would work, because I don't know if you can have a fort built. But if you had house rules, you could use bad maps and like fling the island around. So anyway,
is that legal?
Well, I think it would be legal, but I just realized bad maps. I think it gets played as soon as you discover it. So you wouldn't discover UT on an island where a fort already is. So I guess it wouldn't work. I guess you'd have to build the fort after the island's moved. But if you moved the island, if you collaborated with like an opponent in like a multiplayer game, you could move the island closer to your opponent's home island and then build Ramsgate on it after it's been moved, and then have like a cannon that's like covers their home island so they can't dock as much. I guess you could, I guess that would work, but it'd be tough to make it work. So
that's known by small children as puppy guarding. Yeah, that sounds like something that's truly evil fun that we should make sure that one of the members of my play group, Tate, never hears about, because it'll give him ideas.
Yeah, don't link him to the podcast.
Yeah, it might be too late for that because he already knows my name on miniature trading. But
nice.
Oh well. I'll hop onto La Santa Isabel, which is, I think, another that made the top 10 schooners list. I keep saying that because it's an awesome ship. Because it's got one of the most powerful abilities in the game. It's got an average armament that I guess you could call good by virtue of just having so many 3L guns. It's got a great move. It's got huge cargo space, and it's a reasonable cost. Oh, and it's part of a pretty good faction, too.
Yeah, definitely. I would say one of the best ships overall in the game. And arguably,
one of the ones that's not like super cheese strategy kind of stuff like Banshee's Cry.
Yeah, true. And I would say not quite, but probably almost on par with the Darkhawk II as maybe the second best four-masted Gold Runner overall for four masters. But and then next, La Cazadora. This one's a nice little support gunship. I like this one a lot. I haven't used her a lot, but I think when I did, I was pretty successful. Has an ability that's good on smaller ships. Ramming can eliminate the ship's mast. Is a two-master, solid speed, very good guns. The cargo's fine. Good little support gunship. Not a lot to complain about for me.
Comparing her to Executioner, as I'm obviously liable to do, she doesn't come in as favorably with cargo, but she does have a very useful ability on a smaller ship. And I would argue that her mixed armament of 2L and 2S is better than that of Executioner, because Executioner is vulnerable to ships that have a ability that blocks L-range guns.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So this thing is, in theory, capable of still fighting any ship that has the that has one of those certain range defense abilities.
Yep. Yeah.
After La Cazadora is El San Jose, which is it's one of those ships that's not quite memorable because it's an empty gold runner, but it's kind of expensive considering all the other options there are. L'Intrépide, there's some French ship from Frozen North, I think, that's basically this.
Yeah, Dijon.
Yeah. Or I think it's Dijon, maybe.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't know the pronunciation.
Yeah, the mustard.
So.
It's the mustard.
Yeah.
Mustard ship is basically this exact ship, but 1 point cheaper.
Yep. Yeah, I like the San Jose. She was an original ship for me from my back in the day. Pretty good Spanish gold runner. I like it's kind of like just like classic gold runner because it has good speed, cargo, bad guns, and a treasure ability. So it's just perfect for getting gold for the most part.
I would argue that the ability to have it affected by a cargo master and allowing you to drop in a helmsman does give her some more merit, but still, not the best of her type.
Yeah. The next one, La Monarca. This one is quite great. I'm going to be kind of harsh. I remember Wolf saying that it's kind of like the Gold Runner. It's not so bad that you feel like bad using it because it's like cheesy. But I feel like he and others have used it so much. I feel like it has kind of entered that realm. I'm kind of sick of the ship. I feel like she's overused. I think she's entered that cheesy realm for me at least. It is a really good ship and it combos perfectly with either version of what's his face. Gosh, I can't remember now. But yeah. The guy from Rise of the Fiends, and maybe like a helmsman or an oarsman too, just for insurance and extra speed. But
yeah, I think I tried to use this once as a flotilla tug.
Yeah,
because in theory it does make for a pretty dang good one.
Yeah,
as it's got basically the fastest base move in the game at 3S, solid cargo space, and the ability to just drag around a flotilla at no expense to yourself makes it not only a stupid fast but capacious gold runner, also one that you don't really want to attack, even if you can catch up to it.
Yeah, very good defenses. Yep.
Next, Diego Cesar Olano, another case of a too expensive Marine.
Yep, exactly. He looks pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember being a little bit slightly scared by his picture back when I pulled him, because I got him early on. Yeah, there's like, in the portrait, there's like a shadow of his head, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, one of his eyes is popping out. I would think maybe if they did another version of him, he might be cursed, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, the next one is Fortaleza Dorada, which we mentioned briefly earlier. Tied with the Devil's Maw for the most expensive fort in the game with 5 gold. This one is fantastic. It's like a defensive stronghold. Has 6 cannons. And L-range cannons cannot hit this fort, which is really great.
Is it 6 cannons? It's showing 5 on the miniature trading database.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the one I'm looking at now has all 6. Yeah, it should be 6. So I have
Okay, the unlimited one's wrong then, because that's what I'm scrolling through.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm in the room where Command the Oceans is, and where the Spanish are. And yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and it does have 6. It has 2 3Ls and 4 3Ss. So
Okay.
basically, yeah, really great defensive stronghold. A really cool fort to use. Outrange cannons are one of the best ways to take out forts. This one forces you to get up close, which is pretty dangerous because it has 6 cannons that fire back at you. So
yeah, the fact that it limits which ships can engage it, really is a very strong ability that gives it extra providence. Words I'm trying to come up with, but yeah, excellent for it.
yep.
Le Superbe. I had this ship, very pretty ship. I broke it.
Oh.
I'm still disappointed about that. Somebody trade me one.
Yeah.
It compares pretty favorably to Black Swan. The ability is nothing great. We've seen this elsewhere. It's tough to use. But look at it for what it is. It's got a good move, great armament, solid cargo space, and it's not outrageously expensive.
Yeah, yeah. I've always loved this one. It's very beautiful. Just like a lot of the French ships we'll talk about, probably say that about all of them. But yeah, it's a really nice ability. That complements the guns really good because using that ability with S range guns doesn't usually amount to a lot for me.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, it has pretty much good or great stats in all categories, pretty much. And then
Yeah,
moving
you
to the
could
next
almost
one.
pair her with Le Hercule or something.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. Yep.
Yeah, pretty expensive though.
Yeah, yeah. The next one, the Soyo Royale. This one is.
You basically got that pronunciation right.
Oh, really? Awesome. All right.
Basically, yeah.
Oh, cool. Anyway, this one for me is like one of the quintessential 5-masters in the game because it has average point, cost, cargo, and move for a 5-master. Very good cannons and a nice ability to eliminate crew. It's also very pretty as well. The blue contrasts nicely with the red of Les Superbe, and it's just another great 5-master for the French, pretty much.
Because it's not really all that well endowed with special strengths, which I kind of like when I'm going to use a 5-master. Like, if I'm going to put in the point investment to get a big ship, I want it to be a pretty special ship.
Yeah.
As a result, I don't think I'm really going to use a ship like this, but I can't deny that it's still one heck of a fighting force.
Yeah, it's still a very good gunship.
La Vengeance is next. There may be a better way to pronounce that. Ability-wise, it's nothing special, but when you examine her as a 4-mast schooner, she's pretty good, but she's not quite HMS Oxford or what was
the Neptune's Horde and St. Isabel.
Yeah, she's none of those. She's almost there, but not quite.
Yeah, it's a pretty good option for France. A good multi-purpose ship, kind of like the Neptune's Horde actually, but not as good at getting gold, but it's slightly better at fighting. So just a really good hybrid overall. I would say the same thing about the next one too, Le Lion. This one has less speed, but it has a big cargo hold. Plus 1 to 4
more useful ability.
Yeah, this one is pretty good as I like using her as a hybrid with an emphasis on raiding enemy gold runners for treasure. That's what I like it for.
Yeah, I always felt that boarding was kind of not as good a strategy as WizKids wanted it to be, but that hasn't stopped me from desperately wanting to use it as a strategy.
Yeah.
Le Courageux, I think is how it's pronounced. Kind of interesting because that's a reasonably solid ability on any size ship, really. Any above 1, that is. And I think when I look at it, it would be better if it were more expensive and 1 mast bigger.
Yeah, I distinctly remember hating this ship when I first, with my original collection, partly because I couldn't pronounce the name. I mangled it like crazy. I said like Carago and like Courageux and stuff like that, which is bad, but
Le Carcajou, wait, different set.
Yeah. But yeah, and but over time I've realized that it's actually quite a good ship. It's good in any role, really. A captain would be a solid crew, just leave it as is. Got cargo and speed and guns to be a solid hybrid with a nice defensive ability. So it's quite a good ship. It's one that I didn't used to like, but now I realize it is quite good.
Yeah, it's one that I would want to see in action to kind of get a better feel for.
Yeah. And then the next one, Atalante. This one's pretty boring. +1 cannon rolls against force with an S. Pretty situational. The only, I don't know, nothing really stands out. The cargo maybe a tiny bit, and it's cheap, but there's just not really a lot to get excited about.
Yeah, it's actually about as basic a 3-master as you can get.
Yeah.
Isn't it? This almost looks like it could have come out of Spanish Main if not for the schooner keyword.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, you could almost say it's Revolution's Windjammer.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Because it has the same ability. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever use it. Yeah. La Belle Etoile. You're looking at...
this one's great.
I mean, yeah, it does look like a solid multi-purpose 3-master, or hybrid, as you often call it.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't really have... It's kind of weird, because it doesn't have competitive armament in that class, but it does have one of the most powerful gunship abilities. It does have excellent move and very far above average hold.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like what I refer to as like a stacked ship, because it has like, it's just great in almost every category. The guns are still only a tiny bit better than average, but
just use a world hater.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just stacked, because it's very good. It's probably one of the most like powerful or most like most exciting 3-master to use, because it packs a punch, and it's quite quick, and it's pretty solid as a hybrid too. So it's definitely a classic one.
Yeah, probably an underrated hybrid.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Next one, La Bayonet. This one, ramming can eliminate the ship's mast, which is nice on a 2-master. I used to not like the ship. I used her a couple times, I think, and it was surprisingly decent. It's definitely not a very good ship, but Captain Helmsman, I don't know. It's not going to do a lot for you, but it might surprise you a tiny bit and do okay.
Yeah, this strikes me as the kind of ship where you only really use it when you want to go way off the beaten path.
Yeah.
And then you'll get a few good cannon rolls, and you'll remember, you'll remember using it forever, but you won't use it again.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
That's what I think of when I look at it.
Yeah.
La Donnée is next. My dad used this one not too long ago, and joking around, he called it the Danny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could say kind of funny. Would you say this is sort of like Bonnie Liz, but not as good?
Yeah, definitely not, with 2 less cargo. Yeah.
Yeah, and is this more expensive as well, or am I wrong?
No, Bonnie Liz is 8, but it has SL speed with 5 cargo, so it's a lot better.
Yes. Where's Bonnie Liz?
Crimson Coast. I compared it to Bloody Jewel, which is even better than Bonnie Liz, so...
Yeah.
It's okay. I don't really... It's another ship I've had since the set came out, but it's pretty underwhelming. The ability is really unnecessary, because... it's not that bad, I guess, but the French already have decent named crew, and it doesn't have a lot of point space to be able to utilize some of the more interesting pirate options. And then La Favori, this one is actually pretty cool. Mostly because the defense ability, the cargo space, and the hold. So this is kind of, I think this is part of the reason I think the Frolic should be a French ship, because this is the same thing, but with 3 more cargo spaces for only 1 more point. So WizKids totally screwed up the Frolic and should have made it more like this one. I've kind of considered this one, she's not quite as good, but I consider this like the French answer to the Lady Provost, the English ship, because it's very similar, just has 1 less cargo space for the L range cannot hit the ship versus Home Island rating. So it's a good French Gold Runner. Very expensive for how fragile it is. I mean, S-range guns and ramming are pretty plentiful and popular, so it's not going to hold up well usually, but it's still actually kind of an underrated French gold runner, just on the expensive side.
A helmsman and oarsman would do this thing some favors.
Yeah.
But it's easily, I mean, if something comes after it and it does have L-range guns, it's going to have to resort to ramming, and if it needs to ram, it's going to have to catch it up first.
Yep.
Yeah. La Félicite. Too expensive for what it is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I find this ability kind of pointless because I feel like it could be 8 or 9 points with just 2 outguns and no ability, you know? Because that would be similar to the Executioner, so...
I think the idea is that it's supposed to catch people off guard if they don't read the card, but every time I play a game, because, you know, I'm still with pretty newer players who are still getting a feel for what ships are capable of, they read the not the flavor text, the ability text of every ship I pick.
Yeah.
So that would not come as a surprise to them, and they'd know to avoid it for that reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this one, the only thing I would say is, like, it's nice with the equipment, because you think you have a 2S cannon, but then it's L, so then you can use, like, the equipment versus the specialists are limited to S, but other than that, pretty, kind of an expensive support gunship. Moving on, Le Pique, this one is really great. Basically, 3 cargo for 5 points, like the Lightning, but it's faster, SSS speed, and a good cannon 2S, which you can double with the sniping ability. I know people like this as like a sport gunship with like equipment or whatever. I actually like her as just an empty gold runner, and sometimes with a flotilla hooked up behind.
Yeah, this is probably an ideal flotilla tug. Or flotilla. I'm not actually sure how that's pronounced.
Oh yeah, I looked it up. It is flotilla. I used to say flotilla all the time, but
okay, but it does look like a Spanish word.
Yeah.
So I absolutely can't blame you there.
Yeah.
Only reason why I said is flotilla is because I've heard it as that in battle stations. But
okay.
But yeah, you're right. This is an ideal flotilla tug because it's super fast and it has the ability to complement its own range. So, you know, just with the captain, of course, that would be simple and really good. It's also very obviously a solid gold runner because it's, if you compare it to an awesome ship like l'Intrépide, it has less cargo space, but you do get a faster move at the same point cost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's quite nice.
Considerable for... I wouldn't use it plain as a gunship, though, because it's just not durable enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Le Bon Marine, the French got some really good One Masters in this set.
Yeah.
Le Bon Marine, again, I'm going to compare it to l'Intrépide because one of my favorite empty gold runners, just because it's simple and effective, and it's not Banshee's Cry. This is basically that ship with one less mast and for one more point, but you do get the Explorer ability for free.
Yep.
Doesn't take up any space.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best gold runners. I think it's one of the most perfect gold runners because you don't need any crew. Just send her out as is, and it's just like a perfect gold ship, pretty much. Sometimes I would put a helmsman aboard to make it even faster, but you don't always need that. So. All right. So next one, La Fontaine, 0LR reroller crew for the French. So that's good. They got like at least 2 of these, but anyway. But
you can skip ahead past Philippe Umke because he's another terrain ignorer.
Yep, another 3-pointer. Again, I don't want to use them. Guy Laplante or whatever, however you pronounce it.
Laplante, I think.
Okay, Laplante.
And quick correction because I'm just going to be this anal about it. Le Pique earlier, the only reason why I think it's not La Pique or Le Pique is because there was a Formula One driver by the name of Nelson Piquet who had a T on the end of his name, which was silent. So that's why I think it's Le Pique.
Yeah.
Anyway, pedantry over. Let's talk about Guy Laplante.
Yeah, I would never know. This guy, he's similar to Woods Rogers. He gets +1 to cannon rolls against sports with an S. The second ability, +1 to boards, is a little bit better than +1 against pirates, but still a very niche crew. The 2 things I'll say
about him...
ship, too. Yeah, he's linked to a good ship. The two things I'll say is it's one of the coolest and most interesting crew portraits in the game. The artwork is really interesting.
Freaking flaming swords.
I know, they're like glowing or something. It's like golden or something. And also he's playing a pretty big role right now in Command the Oceans, my campaign game. The French are using him as like a diplomat aboard a Four Master, and he's getting into some interesting action so far. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out and what his adventure ends up being in that game. So anyway.
That reminds me of something real quick. Commenting on this card's art, he's got kind of this devilish grin on his face.
Yeah.
And because I'm juvenile, I once saw this very card, with this artwork, listed on eBay for $4.20. So, of course, I took a super zoomed in screenshot of Guy LaPlante's face staring at the price going, basically making my face over it.
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm immature. Michel Bordeaux. Another 7-point Marine. Can I skip talking about that?
Yeah.
Actually, why don't you talk about mermaids?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't even want to. I think everybody knows by now I hate them. My least favorite game piece, and they should be banned. And I don't even use them in Vassal Tournaments 1 and 2, which Xerix and I are doing. We're using events in that, except for mermaids and Favor of the Gods, because even those I can't even in like tournament play, I can't even handle them. So just nope.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to use events, just because I've heard how much damage they can do to the game.
Yeah.
Father Rene Bordeaux is another crew saver for 5 points. He's for the French. Does he have a link? I don't think so.
Oh yeah, he's linked to I guess his brother maybe. The Marine you just talked about, or didn't?
Oh yeah, so basically 2 crew I'm not super enthusiastic about.
Yeah, exactly.
Linked. Wonderful. So instead, let's talk about Paradis de la Mer.
Oh yeah, this is a great one.
Possibly the greatest forward?
Yeah, I would say definitely the best forward in the game. Just mostly the ability is just overpowered. I think it would have been a lot better with just this ship ignores the first, or this forward ignores the first hit it takes with all the flags, or maybe maybe the first time the forward is shot at all game, and then you have to like take the result in half or whatever, or like it can't exceed 3 or something. I don't know, some kind of cap on it, rather than getting a 6. And then, I don't know, like what'll happen is you'll get a 6, and then you can't damage it, and then when your opponent's about to win, you'll roll the 1, but then by then it's too late, so it's just annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried a couple times to find ways to use like Davy Jones to copy this ability, but it doesn't allow it because it's only for crew and ships, not forts.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, if you got this on a ship,
that'd be insane.
Get this on El Corazado.
Yeah, or a 10 master. Yeah, that'd be game breaking. Yeah.
All right.
The Americans are here.
Yeah, Bonhomme Richard. I've got some weird stories about this ship. One of which is because I was one of the weird kids and not very well socialized, I boasted openly on like my class portrait thing in 5th grade about owning this ship.
Oh, okay.
Like nobody else in my class gave a shit about the game, but it's like things about James. He owns Bonhomme Richard, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, nice.
But I got the ship out of a pack, and because it was John Paul Jones' ship, and as I mentioned earlier, John Paul Jones was a freaking hero of mine in 5th grade.
Yeah.
I was ever so excited to get the ship, and I think my brother broke it, and I didn't forgive him for years. But but I eventually got another, and and now everything's better.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, my little, I don't have nearly as good a story, but speaking of broken, my copy of this one arrived from another person who evidently played because it was broken, but not badly at all. The hull is like splintered out a little bit, but they were able to keep it intact, so it's not totally, doesn't look too bad. This one was sunk in Command the Oceans by the pirates, but it's definitely a good gunship. Pretty just very good attributes in pretty much all categories, so I'm a very good ship there.
Yeah, it is a really solid ship. Although John Paul Jones as a crew, I may be talking about him too early, is kind of just an inferior version of Ocean's Edge version of Montana Maze.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's the same crew, but he's only linked to this ship, which is kind of disappointing because I used him on this ship and just him, maybe with a helmsman. Yeah, I think I used John Paul Jones and a helmsman on this ship, and it was not amazing, but I did, when this ship was surrounded, get the extra action roll at just the right time and sink 2 ships in 1 turn.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Anyway.
All right. The next one, Constitution, one of the best gunships in the game. I talked about it in my top 10 gunships thread at Miniature Trading. This one pretty much tied with the Acorazado as the best gunship in the game in terms of like a versus or 1v1 basis. It's not the best gunship for 40 points, but it's the most durable, pretty much along with the Acorazado. And
it's 1 rung below El Acorazado because the Americans don't get that crew that allows you to deny the first hit.
Yeah, Joaquin Vega, yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, and it's a point more for less cargo. Yeah, I do prefer the Acorazado, even though she's slower. Pretty similar, but yeah, just an amazing ship, really.
Comparing Constitution to Acorazado, statistically, you're basically getting the same ability on the same size ship for 1 less point, and you get more uniform armament.
Yeah.
But it comes at the cost of you lose out, obviously, on Joaquin Vega. You lose 1 cargo space, and your guns lose a little bit of accuracy in the name of range.
Yeah.
The Americans don't really have all that many great abilities exclusive to them, and the whole cargo master thing, that advantage that this ship has, the Spanish have too.
Yeah.
So Constitution just barely plays second fiddle to El Acorazado. And next we've got United States.
It's just bad. You could admit it.
I'm not sure. I don't want to call it bad on an emotional level, but I can't be honest by calling it good.
Yeah.
Because it's not on the cheap end for a 5-masted ship. It's got an overpriced ability. It's slow. It has average armament and kind of an unfitting ability, given its mix of range and kind of lack of accuracy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the flavor text is funny because it says speed doesn't matter when she catches you in her devastating guns.
It doesn't this game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you're not gonna catch anything with S speed, so it's kind of funny. But
I feel like there are enough. Like there have probably been multiple games played in the history of this game where it has caused somebody who thought, "Oh, it's a crap ship," and then decimated them. But
yeah. I think
it should be underestimated, but it's not great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I've only used it a couple times. One time when I used it, I think it got like pinned by a squid, and then I want to say the first broadside attack missed, and then the next one hit, and it knocked the squid out of the water. So that was fun. But yeah. But basically, the biggest problem, the cargo space and the base move are both terrible, even for 5-masters. So it totally cripples the ship, and you can't really do much from there. The next one, though, the Enterprise, is the opposite. So basically, out of the 4 or 5-masters the Americans got in the set, 3 are good or fantastic, and then 1 is not good at all, really. The Enterprise is another great one, and arguably the best in terms of like most games people play. Very similar to the Titan, gets an extra action built in as a great ability. All 2S guns. Very good speed, good cargo with 5 and 18 points. This was actually my second 5-master I pulled, and it's just been a classic for me and just one of the better gunships in the whole game, really.
I'm kind of surprised that they never had a Captain Jean-Luc Picard linked to this ship. Maybe I'm being kind of silly with that, but the Enterprise basically is HMS Titan with a couple small tweaks. It's 1 point more, but it gets a better base move at the expense of losing the L range guns.
Yeah.
And it also reminds me, I have a sort of theory that all the early American ships are tweaked versions of some of the other factions' good ships. Yeah. Because Enterprise is HMS Titan, Constitution is El Corazado.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can find some examples for Bonhomme Richard and maybe Roanoke.
Yeah. Yeah, they are quite similar, yeah.
Yeah. But aside from... I guess Bonhomme Richard is kind of basically Les Superbes, isn't it?
Kind of. Yeah, a little bit.
Ish. I might have to scroll up to check that. Somebody leave in the comments whether or not that's true. But what about Freedom?
This one, I like this one. +1 to cannon rolls against pirates isn't amazing, but the pirates are the best faction, so it's nice. The speed is pretty much the best asset, because the points, the cargo, and the cannons are all about average, so it's pretty good. If the speed was any less, it wouldn't stand out at all, but as is, it's a solid gunship. Obviously better options, but not a bad one at all.
I mean, I have this idea in my head that the Americans sort of do, as one of their best things, four-masted multi-purpose hybrid ships. This is almost evidence in favor of that, but all the other factions have better options of this kind.
Yep.
So that theory doesn't hold up quite as well. Next is Louisiana, another American four-masted schooner. You're looking at something that's got pretty good armament, good cargo space. But not useful, but not awesome ability. It looks like it should be a good hybrid, but for a couple of reasons, it just kind of falls short.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I've always had a soft spot for this one because this is another original ship for me. I like how it's unique. This one stands out to me. The cargo speaks to me. The Cursed Blade, actually, same cargo and speed, but a different kind of ship. Louisiana is more offensive. I kind of like how the cannon has a random 4S at the back, just to make it like weird. It kind of stands out. And yeah, with that ability,
that's more interesting.
Yeah, the ability is pretty offensive, but then with the cargo, it's good enough to be a solid hybrid. So lately, I've used it as more of a gold runner in the campaign games, but in regular games, it would be a pretty solid hybrid and one of my favorite American ships. Continuing, the Saratoga is another good one. You'll notice the Americans really loved their schooners a lot. They got a ton of them in this set, and then they had a lot of other good ones. I've always thought the Americans were one of the best factions for 3- and 4-masted schooners. They just have so much good quantity.
Not Gold Eagle.
Yeah, not that one as much. But sometimes it's hard to even pick between their 4-masted schooners because you see Freedom, Louisiana, Saratoga, and then the Hudson.
The USS Hudson,
yeah, exactly. There's so many good options. And then even the Grampus from MI is decent. But anyway, Saratoga has really good speed. The cannons are good. They get worse towards the back, but they're still good. Speed is pretty much the greatest asset here, similar to the Freedom. This one I find a little bit more offensively minded than the Freedom because it's a little more expensive, has a boarding bonus, and a couple of really nice 2S cannons at the front. So a good gunship.
Yeah, this strikes me as kind of the ship you sail straight at your enemy and then you board them with. Ideally, I would put OE Montana Maze on board and maybe a helmsman.
Yeah.
Because then you'll just basically chase people down and board them, shoot them, take their treasure, all that stuff. Yankee. Not as well armed as any of the others. Cheaper, not with the most useful ability. I guess okay, cargo space. Not awesome.
Yeah, no, I don't really like this one because the other ones are great or they stand out, and this one just doesn't have anything exciting about her. So I've never really been a fan of this one.
The flavor text it hypes the ship up a lot for a ship that's not great.
Yeah, I've noticed that with other ones. Like this ship cannot be pinned. A lot of those ships have like these crazy flavor texts, but there's sometimes like I forget which one. I can't remember if it's like reverse captain or some ability. In the flavor text, it's supposed to be like a really fast ship. Like they make it sound like it's extremely fast when it has reverse captain. Then the speed is like L, so it's really weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So now we're into
Jarvis.
we're into three-masted American schooners now, which, similar to the four-masters, are fantastic. The Jarvis and the Boston were two of my original ships from my collection back in the day, and this one is quite good. L immunity to L range guns, very good speed. The cannons are solid. It is quite expensive, I will say, to be used as a three-masted gunship, but if you can afford it, it's still quite a good option.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than Gold Eagle.
Yeah.
Of course. It is really, really expensive for a three-mast. I've found that American ships don't really tend to get cheaper as they get smaller.
Yeah.
Not that much anyway. Yeah, it's good, but because it just doesn't combine enough really strong abilities for its price, I can't see myself using it.
Yep.
Carolina is one of the few good, cheap American gold runners.
Yep.
I'm not even sure if she officially has a schooner keyword printed on her, which she should, but paired with a cargo master in the fleet and then a helmsman, you've got a pretty, I guess, forgettable, but really pretty reasonably solid, reasonably priced gold runner.
Yeah, it's quite a good ship. One of their few purpose-built gold runners. I remember Wolf talking about how, and I've noticed this too, opinions on the ship have really gotten better over time, as I've noticed. Like, people used to think the ship was terrible, like no ability, the guns are bad for the most part, but you got to use her for gold mostly, and you shouldn't really put a captain aboard because this ship will be one of their best cheap gold running options. So
it doesn't have guns meant for war. It's not a warship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people have come around on this ship over time, which is nice to see. Apparently, people were really hard on it, and I think I want to say
people have come about on it.
What?
You mean people have come about on it?
Oh yeah, that too. Yep. And I want to say Captain Mike used to say that too, that he used the ship effectively, but other people didn't like it. But it's definitely proved its worth over time. And then next is Boston, like the Jarvis, one of my original ships. This one, ports can't hit the ship. That's the only. Well, the speed is good too, but the ability is the only thing that really makes it stand out, because a lot of these other schooners have SL speed. So, other than a fort wrecker, it's a very average and simple three-masted gunship. So unless you're gonna need a fort wrecker, not much reason to use this compared to the others.
Like the band, as you described it, simple and not average. Yes, I'm taking the chance to talk smack about music there. Julius Caesar, this thing is basically Pride, but for a point less, isn't it?
A point more. Pride is 13.
A point more? Oh, you're right.
Oh, wait, this one has... Oh, Pride is 3 cargo. I just remembered too, yeah.
Okay, so a point more, but you do get more cargo, so better argument for it as a hybrid. Yeah. But it still suffers from the same problem as Pride in that it's not quite good enough as a warship.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this ship. Kind of have a soft spot for it with that extra cargo. This is the type of ship I use, like Captain Helmsman, and then maybe Fire Shot or Stinkpot Shot, something to take advantage of those L range guns, which I just love. I kind of overrate L range guns a little bit compared to S range. I just have like a soft spot for them. But yeah, I think it's a cool ship. Definitely a fun one. And it looks pretty cool too, like a lot of the other ships in this set. The next one, Rattlesnake, arguably the best American cheap gold runner, at least. Only 5 points for 5 cargo, so that's amazing. And
just throw a helmsman aboard.
Yep, and just run gold and you're good. So.
And if you've got a cargo master in your fleet, you can justify dropping an explorer in there too.
Yeah, or even a captain in a way.
Maybe it's got good enough guns at its price.
Yeah, it's a decent hybrid.
Although with the negative ability, you'd have to avoid certain engagements.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, Hannah.
Oh, yeah.
One of the worst ships ever released. It's one of those, proximity cannon roll boosters, which are so hard to use that they're just kind of absurd.
Yeah, absurd. That's a good word to use.
I'm sure that ships like this have some utility in huge campaign games.
Exactly. Yep. I was about to mention it's in Command the Oceans, and the Americans are trying to use it. So.
I kind of wonder if this would make a good flotilla tug, actually.
Yeah, the speed. That's what I was
You
gonna
put
say. I don't think it's
Minuteman
one of
on
the worst.
this.
I don't think it's one of the worst ships released just because the speed is so good. LL is amazing, and also with that ability, you could get with that speed, you could get to an engagement really quick to get that bonus
Yeah.
within a turn. But yeah, and the other really cool thing is the flotilla will be considered a friendly ship because it's considered a ship for gameplay purposes, so it gets the bonus.
So
That's really
if you
cool.
put Minuteman on the back of this, which I think is the only American flotilla,
Yep.
you've got, extended range on 3L guns instead of 4L, and then you've got extended range on 1S guns.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd argue that if you put, say, SAT and reroll on this, you've got a super fast, basically, flotilla.
Yeah.
It'd be really expensive in that setup, but
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of glad that I've found a viable use for this ship, which is one of the most hated ships out there, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely a solid use. And yeah, the Americans are going to try to use it in Command the Oceans. They've actually launched the Seminole as well, which is a ship from Frozen North. It's a one master with only L speed that has the same ability for like 13 points. So it's actually a worse ship, but they're going to try to use both because they just have, they've spent like 1,000 plus gold in the game, so might as well. So
actually, wait, I do kind of wonder if you were towing a ship like this, does the bonus apply?
I don't see why not, because it doesn't need masts to be active. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Not an action of any kind.
You wouldn't want to lose it to an enemy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They can tow it into battle, and this is getting dumb. But I'm glad we found a use for that.
Yeah, I mean with helmsman oarsman too. Even if this ship is derelict, with the helmsman oarsman, you could row over to another ship and get the bonus one last time before she sinks or something. So anyway, okay. So the next one is the Hornet. I don't have much to say.
An exciting ship to talk about.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say though. It's just kind of boring to me. I don't think I've used it yet, so hopefully I'll put it in CTO, but not yet. So
I mean, we've already talked about how many good options there are at this price for two-masted ships in this set.
Yeah.
Or
like the Executioner blows it out of the water immediately. Yeah.
Literally. And Carolina too, 1 point cheaper and makes for a better Gold Runner.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, I get to talk about this one.
Yeah.
This has the same ability as, I want to say, is it Harbinger or Deliverance from Spanish Main?
Oh, Harbinger.
Okay, Harbinger. But this ship is significantly cheaper and faster. This thing is kind of hard to use in a small game, but it's incredibly good in a big game.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, definitely.
Because the second you derelict an enemy ship, Philadelphia can swoop in and target the most valuable derelict enemy ship.
Yeah.
And then it's instantly yours.
Yeah.
Have you gotten experience with this ship?
Yeah, I played a game against Repkozai in miniature trading, and I think I narrowly won like 85 to 81 in gold or something. It was like 100 points. Oh, it was a Circle of Blood game, and I used this. I don't know if it was this or the New Orleans from South China Seas. I think it was one of them. I actually used a ship in that game called the Ship Stealing Fleet, where I used all 5 ships and Commander Temple with this ability in one fleet, and I managed to capture Black Pearl and warp it to my home island, like at the end, which was good. I don't know if that was the biggest reason I won, but yeah, I pulled out a narrow victory with that fleet using this ability as like the theme of that fleet. So it's definitely fun. And it can be a little bit tough to pull off because you still have to explore the ship. So you might want to have like an extra action crew. Sometimes that can come in handy. But overall, it's definitely a really fun one. And next, Flying Fish, pretty average, good speed, but other than that, not much to say. This one attacked the pirates in Command the Oceans. The pirates captured her, and then the Americans have now recaptured her, and we'll see if she gets in any more fights eventually.
Yeah, I think just another ship that's super forgettable and not really worth using unless you have to.
Yep.
And looking at Wasp, the next ship, brings me to a point that I wanted to mention. I'm not sure the Americans really do have any good small ships.
Yeah, they have some, but they're a lot fewer and farther between than like three-masted schooners, four-masted schooners, and five-masted square rig. Those are their three strengths, I would say.
Yeah, it's very rare that they have good two-masted or one-masted ships.
Yeah, like Rattlesnake and the native canoes are pretty much the best ones.
Yeah, Wasp is just bleh.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about Peacock?
Yeah, I like Peacock. Can be pinned, really good speed, solid guns. I like probably my favorite combo is Captain and then a Fire Pot Specialist for that 2S cannon. Other than that, you could put a Helmsman on to make it super fast. It'd be good with a Flotilla Captain and maybe like an Oarsman. Yeah, I've used it and I look forward to using it again. I like it a lot, actually.
This ship's biggest problem, though, is that it's not Raven. Another bird-named ship at, I think, the same price, right?
Yeah, it's 10, but it has twice as much cargo, so.
Yeah, and same move and better firepower.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Peacock is the budget Raven, which is probably not something that makes sense in any other context. Chesapeake is one of those ships that would be a good support gunship if you couldn't basically disable one-masted ships with easy grams.
Yeah, exactly. It's tempting because the gun, the speed, and the ability are perfect as a support gunship, but then you have to spend at least 10 points with a captain, so it becomes obsolete pretty quickly. The next one, I would say the opposite though. The Lynx is pretty cool. 7 points gets you 3 spaces. When it carries no cargo, it gets plus S to her base move, so you're best using her as an empty gold runner. You don't have to think about any crew options. It's a really simple ship to use. Basically just go out at SSS, grab 3 coins, and come back at S plus S, and it's a pretty solid American gold runner compared to their other stuff.
And if you have the Cargo Master in play in your fleet, it actually becomes really pretty good.
Yeah.
And actually, Lynx is Harlequin, I think it is. I'm sure it's like a French root word or something. Blah 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 blah. Here I go with etymology again. This is we already talked about this ability earlier. Yeah. It's not really a good ability. And as a two-masted ship that looks like it's supposed to be, one-masted ship that looks like it's supposed to be a support gunship, too expensive and not effective enough.
Yeah, she reminds me of Chesapeake, but more expensive. Like you could have that extra cargo space at maybe 8 points with the same 2L gun with no ability, but I don't know why this ability is overpriced like that, but oh well. John Paul Jones, we already talked about. Even with Montana Maze being a little better, he's still viable, especially in larger games like 100 points or more, because SAT and crew can't be eliminated. Very, very good named crew combo for a monster gunship, and he's got a good link to a good gunship. But I'll just go to the next one too. Commodore David Porter. This one linked to the Freedom, which is a good ship we reviewed earlier. One of the good four-masted schooners, solid gunship. This guy has got broadsides attack with the captain ability. Not something I would seek out, but maybe on a ship. I'm trying to think of American two-masters with 2S guns, like the New Orleans maybe, but tough to use.
I'd argue this could be a pretty good one on Enterprise.
Yeah, maybe. I just don't like risking all the everything on one roll.
You're probably right, but yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll ever use that combo just because of how expensive it is.
Yeah. Like Xerix and his brothers, I feel like they've gotten good broadsides attack rolls. Like if you read their battle reports, like sometimes the ship will get like 4 or 5 BAs in a row, and then but if I do it, I'll get like 1 out of 4, so it's just not worth it for me. So.
Next is Jonathan Harridan, basically captain and reroll pairing, which is awesome. It's a really good general purpose setup for just about any warship.
Yeah, I've noticed he's super essential for the Americans because they don't have many reroll abilities. Wayne Nolan is a limit crew, but he's super important for them because he combos perfectly with their, surplus of crew like John Paul Jones, Montana Maze, the other version of Montana Maze. The reroll combos perfectly with the SAT and the extra action abilities, so it's a great combo for any of their 5 masters specifically. And then go to I don't know.
Kikoa,
Yeah, I was gonna say
another
Kikawa.
3-point terrain ignore.
Yeah, nothing to say there. Carl Smith, he's one of
4
my least favorite crew ever. So
yeah,
he's terrible.
Yeah, he's double the price of Spanish main crew with the same ability. He does have a linked crew, doesn't he?
Yeah, but that's even worse.
But it's not a great crew either.
No, it's worse. Or well, not really. Maybe it's worse.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Diamond Nelson Turner?
Yeah, I remember he was one of my least favorites, but then I got the canceller version. I was like, oh, now I'll use him. So, but yeah, the Trading Treasure with an S for 3 points. I think it could be 1, and it wouldn't really see much use. So,
yeah. Maybe even 0. Who knows? I mean, it's already taking up a cargo space. That's cost in its own. Yeah. Commander Albert Crenshaw. All the ship's cannons have L range. It's an interesting ability, but again, it's expensive enough that on the ships where it would have some use, it's probably still too expensive to be worth choosing over some other established better crew.
Yeah.
Even if you drop this on Minuteman, that flotilla, it's still of very limited use.
Yeah. I try to use these on bigger ships with like a lot of S range cannons. Like if you could get them on like the Zeus and make all 10 cannons 3L instead of 3S, you get a big range bonus. But if you use them on something like smaller than 4 masts, it's not really worth it. I could see maybe Enterprise because you could still fit a bunch of other crew, and then you'd have
Thomas Jefferson
instead of 2S. But other than that, pretty limited usage.
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson's another good one for it.
Which one?
Thomas Jefferson from
yes. Yeah, that's
South China Seas.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a later review.
Yeah, I love that ship. Anyway, King George, the dog, nothing special.
But he's a good boy.
Yeah, 4 points.
He's a good boy.
Yeah, it should be 2 points.
He should be 2 points, but he's still a good boy. Hacksaw Riley, just another 5-point doctor, crew saver, blah, blah, blah. So let's move on to foul winds.
That one's interesting.
This is way too complicated for me to really understand at this time of night, and it's a little bit too expensive considering the other events.
No, it's way too cheap. No, it's ridiculous.
I mean, well, considering the other events.
Yeah, it should be like 6+ points. But yeah, being able to move the other ships, you basically become God and control the weather. So I don't really like that aspect of it in terms of like how it's realistic. But oh well. But yeah, and yeah, this would be another one that if the islands were closer together, it would be more powerful too. And then it would be interesting in multiplayer games to try to negotiate like an alliance because it's chosen by the player to the left. So you could try to persuade them to not do bad things to your ships. But anyway.
Yeah.
Ralph David, this one's great. We've already talked about the +2 gold ability and how it's one of the best in the game. I would pay 5+ points for it, so to get it for 3 is a great bargain. I would say, I actually want to bring him a little more attention to him, because Ralph David Revolution version is not one I see mentioned a lot. Everybody knows about the Rise of the Fiends version, it seems like, because he's eternal for 1 point. But this one is fantastic, because you get
almost every iteration of him is really good.
Yeah, and
except for Barbary Coast.
Yeah, and the Americans don't have many cases of this ability on any of their ships or crew, so he's a really valuable one for them.
Yeah, it is a really rare ability. I think the Spanish have it,
have a ton of them. Yeah.
I'm not sure any other factions do.
Yeah, the Genny Gallows has it for the pirates.
Okay, yeah,
other
you're
factions have it sometimes, but on crew, it's pretty rare and valuable.
Becalmed.
Oh man.
This strikes me as something you can basically use to, if you got a battle group coming at you, you just drop that in there and you give yourself a turn of free time.
Yeah, but it becomes really overpowered because you can drop it, like right by an enemy's home island. If you just drop it right next to them, if you go first, you basically
at the start of the game.
Yeah, you just get 2 turns. They can't go, so it doesn't work.
Yeah,
it's totally OP. So
that plus do that and also have what is it? Lord Micron cheese setup.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. This actually almost ruined Vassal Tournament number 2 for a short time because Xerix and I, there was a fleet, I think it was called Quick Wins the Game, unless I'm mistaking it for something else. But basically, we forgot about the rule that you can only play one event at the beginning of each of your turns. So we were flipping.
I see where this is
Yeah.
going.
So basically, we were flipping Becalmed and Hidden Cove on the same turn. So then, basically, you froze the other fleet and got 2 turns with the advantage of Hidden Cove. So that fleet dominated with like the first 2 rounds of the tournament, and it was like I think it was like 1 win away from going to the semifinals or the finals. And then like I was looking up some like obscure pirate code thing about like measuring distances like in fog banks, which you can't do or whatever. And then I saw the thing about the events play like 1 at the beginning of each of your turns. I was like, oh god. And then so we had to redo it. And then this fleet like lost immediately. It got like blown out in 2 games. So Becalmed is like really OP, but as long as you don't use it on the same turn as Hidden Cove, it's not always an automatic win, even though it can be sometimes, especially if you go first.
You're not allowed to have multiple of the same event in a fleet, are you?
No, they still follow no duplicates. But there is a minute.
Good, because otherwise, if you were able to play like 4 or 5 of Becalmed and give yourself a bunch of free turns.
Yeah, it'd be the worst. But you can sort of do that if you farm a mysterious island, because there's one MI that lets you bring in an event from outside the game.
Yeah.
So that's awful.
Yeah, but with Mysterious Islands, you've also got the risk of having something else go badly wrong. So
yeah.
Ruth Lee, another 2-point reducer, and linked with Kikawa. That's not a very useful link.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically, that's one thing I haven't really talked about yet. But Revolution, the set is great. A lot of people love it for good reason. But although the ships are great, a lot of the name crew are not. Like, we've gone over so many crew that are mediocre. That's one of the things I think is forgotten about the set. And this just kind of proves it. The Americans are introduced in this set, and other than those first 3, most of their name crew are pretty terrible for the most part.
Including, never mind. What's the next one?
Kristen Jefferson. I don't
Esquire.
know why. Yeah, whatever that's supposed to be for. Yeah, basically a treasure trader.
It's his favorite magazine.
So yeah, it's okay. I wouldn't really seek it out. I'd rather just have it built into a ship. But
yeah, that's not the kind of thing that I go out of my way to use.
Yeah.
Thompson's Island, not so well armed. I guess it's on the cheaper side for forts. But, I mean, well, you could dock Hannah at it, right?
Yeah.
Wait, does that even technically have an effect on this fort?
No, because it wouldn't be considered a ship, so.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, just like your Davy Jones combo with Paradise. Yeah.
Yeah, I've come up with a lot of things with Davy Jones that don't actually work.
It's still a good fort, though. It's important just because it's the Americans' only fort, so at least they got one. But other than that, it doesn't really stand out compared to other forts. So. All right, so we'll get to the UTs now. Weapons is pretty cool, actually. This ship gets +1 to boarding rolls for every crew on her. So unlike gun and sword or whatever it is from Caribbean, this one +1 for every crew. So you could really get a big bonus.
It also strikes me those such a niche use item because instead of getting a flat bonus, if your empty gold runner finds this, great, you could have had gold if you didn't put that in play.
Yeah, it's the type of thing where you want to put it on a ship with like Bonnie Peel or a Captain Nemo or like a 10 Master or something like
that. Fruit is next.
So weird.
Why? Why? This, if anything, this one strikes me as negative. It says that it's supposed to kind of, so it's supposed to defend against another unique treasure.
Yeah.
But the odds of that, the odds of these coinciding is next to nil.
Yeah.
And it says fruit takes up 2 cargo spaces and cannot be unloaded.
Yeah, it's bad.
That is, for lack of a better word, bogus.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word that's appropriate.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. One of the weirder UTs and pretty useless. I think they just wanted to make a combo with scurvy, like how vitamin C like can cure it and stuff, like a Age of Sail connection. But other than that, it's really bad in game. So,
yeah, that reminds me. My brother knew somebody who got scurvy.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, because he had a terrible diet and stayed inside all day. Just like me, but it wasn't me.
Yeah. Next one is Sextant. This one ignores terrain when given move action. So just like those crew, but at least in this case, if you can find it, you're getting it for free. This one is decent for a gold runner. Yeah, it's decent for a gold runner because wouldn't take up space, and then if you find it, you might have an easier trip home. But...
Natives. Nasty. The next one. Yeah, this one can be pretty rough if you find it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like rum, except you don't get you don't get any gold for it.
Though. Yeah, it's nasty. Yeah. It's probably I would say it's one of the most brutal negative UTs in the game. So it's really good with like big gunship builds like HMS Grand Temple when you just go around attacking and then they get hit with this and then they get attacked. It's like really bad for them. So,
yeah. What's next?
Oh, Cross of Coronado. Yeah, I'll do that one. Basically, you load it face down, so it takes up the face, and then, but it's a nice defensive thing, almost like, not like the ignore first hit ability, but a little bit like that. This one I've had for a while. It's good. It's just kind of, it doesn't stand out, but it's good.
Yeah, it's not awesome, and it's more important if you've got a slow, maybe a bit more vulnerable gold runner too.
Yeah.
Castaway, sort of like a recruiter for free, but
this one's crazy. Oh my god, I didn't realize it until this year. I want to say, with like some rules question in the rules thread. It's amazing.
One crew, that crew. Oh, actually,
you changed. It assumes the ship's nationality, so the cursed could get Calico Cat from Spanish Main for SAT with no cost for a UT. So
that also makes me wonder if I go through my unique abilities by faction thread, which abilities come in at 3 points or less.
Yeah.
And how you can combine some of the more powerful abilities. Yeah. I mean, you can't get like Kian or anything.
No. But you can get. I mean, Ralph David, we just saw a +2 gold ability, for example. SAT.
Or other versions of Ralph David.
Yeah, Eternal, exactly.
Eternal on who knows, a friendship.
Yeah. And like SAT for a bunch of factions. There's so many good combos, and also it doesn't link to the ship or crew, so you could transfer it to another ship of that nationality to really make it even crazier. So
that's interesting. That does make me wonder what combos are possible with that. It's probably one of the most under considered crazy abilities out there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think I made a post about that and I was like all excited about it, but it's super
good reason, honestly.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's something I want to use a lot more going forward.
I'm gonna have to look into that, do some research.
Yeah. Missionary, just like really nasty. Removes
possibly worse.
Yeah, it takes out all your crew on the ship, removes them from the game. I remember I think it was the first 500 point game I played. I remember I had basically a faction. At the time, my collection wasn't as good, so I had like the mercenaries, the cursed, and the Americans, and the Jades or whatever, all in one big faction. But I didn't have any gold runners for them, so they were just like a chaos faction. So since they weren't getting gold, they were bored. So I had Captain Nemo and a bunch of crew on the Nautilus, and they were bored. So I had the Nautilus explore an island, and then Missionary took out Nemo and all the crew. So I was like, oh my god, it was awesome. It's like one of the worst memories of the game.
Explosives is next. This one's interesting, but not often very usable.
Yeah, it's. I would say it might be kind of overpowered because you can get it on like the Banshee's Cry and then take out like a 5-master
or Jollymon.
Yeah, that'd be even worse.
Pick Jollymon and sail it straight into
a 10-master.
Yeah.
It's too
Which
much.
One meet explosives.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
Yeah, this is one of those things where in the right situation, it's going to be hilariously good.
Yeah.
Like, probably even to the person who is the victim of it.
Yeah. But it's also unfair.
Yeah. Well, that's part of why, but, you know. Neptune's Trident. Oh, wait, did I start the last one, or did you?
Oh, I can't remember. You go
okay. All right, Neptune's Trident. This is a really strange one, and if you combine it with Nemo's plans,
gosh.
it's yes. If anything, wait, no, there was like one. There's a sea monster from Return to Savage Shores that basically had this UT as its ability, but you know,
Namazu. Yep.
Yeah, Namazu, which is it's an awesome offensive ability, but it's a really strange one too, because you do need to find it on. No, I guess you don't need to find it on a warship.
Yeah, not really. You'd like to, because it gives the ship a shoot action, so you'd want like some extra action crew or something like that. But you'd want to like get into position and then blast it out. So.
Yeah, you absolutely would. But if you found it on a Gold Runner and it was a big game, and you had like a battle group coming at you, you know what you'd do.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's loaded. Oh no, it's loaded face up, so you can't really have a surprise. But oh well.
Well, you can use it as area denial then.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, threaten.
Even better if it's in the same fleet as Namazu.
Yep. Oh man.
Just basically how to break up every battle group by sailing in its direction.
Yep. Okay, so now we're getting towards the bottom.
Super rares.
Yeah. The Asp is one. Oh yeah, I don't have this super rare pack. I've used the Star of Siam a bunch because of the Vassal tournaments. I've never used Asp. I think it's actually slightly underrated. It's okay. Obviously,
it's a dedicated border.
Yeah, it's just not that great, but it's maybe not too terrible. I think it's really overshadowed by the SOS Star of Siam.
Yeah, it's. I think if it were faster, S plus L, it might excuse it more, but as is, it's just not quite there. It's not a multi-purpose ship. Nah. It's definitely not a warship outside of boarding.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Star of Siam, one of the best empty gold runners in the game.
Yep.
Although maybe not as good a deal as some other ships we've seen in here.
Yeah. Yep.
This one does nevertheless get some mention in my top 10 galleys post, which will be coming at some point.
Yeah, nice.
Just because it really is a good ship, but I haven't used it.
Yeah, it's great. Next one is Wesley. Basically the S-board ability. I wonder if this is the first time S-board showed up. I'm thinking.
I think it might be.
I can't remember us going over that in the other set reviews, so yeah, maybe
a
little preview.
Guy LaPlante?
Or
was that a later version of
it? Yeah, that's the FNS Fire and Steel version, I'm pretty sure.
You're right.
Yeah.
And the French got like 2 or 3 S-boarders in that set.
3. Yeah.
Those lazy biz kids.
Yeah, they got 2 in that set with Philippe Jourdan, and then they have Robert Surcouf from BC, so 3 total. Anyway, but yeah, Wesley, I don't think this is worth 5. I think 4 or even 3. 3 seems cheap, but it's just not that great for me. I know Xerxes likes it, but it's tough to use effectively.
Yeah, honestly, I've always looked at it and gone, I'm not going to use it.
Yeah.
Now we're on to SE ships, the last 4. There's a couple interesting ones in here, but Hangman's Noose is not really one of them.
Nah, it's super boring.
Yeah, it's average or slightly under average stats, plus a kind of, a faction bonus. So,
yeah.
Unless you have something to say about it, you can jump onto Red Curse.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to talk about Red Curse. This is actually, it's probably one of the lesser known, like, quite good ships, pretty underrated, because of the rarity. It's because of that and how good it is, it's become one of my most wanted ships on my wanted list. Very good cargo. The speed is average, but you get quite good guns, a nice mix of ranges and ranks. And then you have the home island rating ability, which is nice with that big cargo hold. So there's a ton of great pirate crew options like Hammersmith. extra actions, home island rating. It's definitely a fun package. I like the name and I like everything about it, really.
Yeah, in theory, you could combine this with just plain captain and sat, because I am not sure it really needs to be fast with how well armed it is.
Yeah. I think it should, just because if you don't get the SAT, you're only L, which is pretty slow. But
but I look at it and I think it's tough enough to defend itself if something comes back to try to take care of the home island raider.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of a pain no matter how it's outfitted.
Yep, exactly.
Concorde is one of 2 American SE ships from this.
Mm-hmm.
Not exciting, even as far as SE ships go. If anything, pretty underwhelming, because its armament is almost average until it gets kind of bad at the back.
Yeah, it's not that great. The next one, Franklin. This
one's broken.
The opposite. Yeah, this one's really great. With a captain and crew +1 to cannon rolls, and the cannons are already 2S. So as long as you have a captain helmsman, got a bunch of 1S cannons go around, and as long as you don't roll a 1, you'll hit. So it's one of the most accurate gunships in the game, probably on par with the Gallows and a few others like the Resolution, as super accurate 4-masted gunships. So really great option for the Americans.
Yeah, I would actually argue this is one of the best 4-mast ships ever released, because not only does it, because you're gonna use it with a captain, you are. So, quadruple of the best guns out there. If you wanted, you could put whatever his name was with L range on it.
Yeah.
That might not be a waste on this ship.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Crenshaw. Yeah.
But yeah, because it's also got okay speed and good cargo space.
Mm-hmm.
This at a reasonably competitive price, this is a hybrid ship.
Yeah, it's pretty great. All right, so that does it. Actually, that's it. Anything else you want to say about the set overall?
Nothing I can think of right now. One thing I did just think of. I did like this set enough back when it was out that when I bought a pack of Barbary Coast, I was kind of like, and I went back to buying Revolution.
Yeah, I could see that definitely happening. Yeah, I like the set overall. I'm glad I brought up. I think it's slightly overrated just because the named crew are pretty mediocre, and the events were, of course, a bad idea overall, but it's still one of the best sets and one of my favorites overall. So it's fun to do the review. All right, so thanks for listening. This was episode 9, I'm pretty sure, of the Pirate CSG podcast, and we'll be back with more. So thanks for listening.